Love is a wonderful thing, but it is not always simple. There are moments when you feel like you understand everything, but then there are times when you feel confused and lost. So how to overcome the challenges in love? Not every man who stops loving you will say it. Many choose to stay silent, keeping a normal appearance, but their hearts have long left you. And the scariest thing is when you still love, still hope, while they are just staying out of habit or because they don't want to be the first to leave. In this video, we will explore together the clear signs that he has stopped loving you even if he doesn't say it. Listen carefully, because sometimes, the truth lies in the smallest details. Welcome to the channel, Sophia's Knowledge, and my name is Sophia. This is where we will explore, learn, and share valuable lessons about love. In today's video, Sophia will reveal to you 7 clear signs he doesn't love you anymore but won't say it. Let's explore with Sophia the secrets to building a strong and meaningful love. Before we begin, find a quiet place, put on your headphones and relax. Let all your worries go away, and let the messages in this video help you calm down and feel the most complete. Are you ready? Let's start now. Sign 1. He's no longer taking the initiative. In the early days of your relationship, he was eager. He planned dates, sent sweet messages without being prompted, and made it clear that he wanted to be around you. He found joy in making you smile, in texting good morning just to start your day right, and good night to make sure he was the last person you thought of. Back then, you didn't have to question his intentions, you felt them in everything he did. But now, something feels different. You wait for his text. You hesitate before calling, wondering if you'll be too much. You start the conversations, you plan the dates, you ask to meet. And he? He replies. He says yes, sometimes. But he no longer initiates. You feel like you're holding up the entire connection on your own. When a man stops taking the initiative, it's not just about actions, it's about emotional withdrawal. Initiative is one of the clearest signs of genuine interest. It's what people do when they care, when they are excited, when they want to be involved. When that disappears, it's like watching a flame slowly go out. Not because the wind blew it, but because the spark is simply no longer there. It's easy to make excuses. Maybe he's just busy. Maybe he's tired. Maybe he's going through something. And yes, all those things can be true, temporarily. But love makes time. Real connection doesn't fade under pressure, it finds a way to stay lit. A man who still values the relationship will eventually circle back, explain himself, and show up again with intention. But a man who is slowly detaching won't fight for that connection. He'll just drift. The pain of realizing this is subtle but profound. It's not a dramatic breakup. There are no harsh words, no slammed doors, no fiery arguments. It's quieter than that. It's the kind of absence you feel in the presence of someone who once made you feel seen but now seems to look right through you. When a man stops being proactive, you begin to doubt yourself. You might wonder if you did something wrong, if you're not attractive enough, interesting enough, or low maintenance enough. But the truth is, his emotional disengagement says more about him than it does about you. People outgrow feelings. They change. Sometimes, they stay in relationships not because they're in love, but because they're comfortable, or afraid of the discomfort that comes with ending it. What makes this sign even more confusing is that he doesn't necessarily leave. He doesn't say it's over. He might still respond to you, spend time with you, even sleep next to you. But he's not emotionally present anymore. His heart isn't in it. And without initiative, the relationship begins to feel more like a routine than a romance. So, how do you respond when you notice this? The answer lies in self-awareness and self-worth. First, don't chase. If you feel like you're the only one putting in effort, pause. Step back, not as a punishment to him, but as a kindness to yourself. Observe what happens when you stop initiating. Does he notice? Does he reach out? Or does the silence stretch, unbroken? Next, have the courage to face the truth, even if it hurts. Ask yourself, am I holding on to the memory of who he was, or am I accepting who he is now? Often, we fall in love with the version of someone they showed us in the beginning, and we keep trying to pull that person back out, long after they've stopped showing up. Finally, know that your value doesn't diminish because someone else failed to see it or nurture it. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve someone who wants to call you, not just someone who answers. Someone who wants to make plans with you, not someone who agrees because they have nothing better to do. Love is never meant to feel one-sided. It's easy to confuse consistency with comfort. Just because someone remains physically present doesn't mean they are emotionally invested. And the absence of conflict is not the same as the presence of love. The real question is, are you growing together, or are you just not breaking up? If he's no longer taking initiative, it's time to stop looking at what he used to do and start paying attention to what he's doing now, or not doing. Actions don't lie. And silence, distance, and passivity often say the things words never will. You can't force someone to love you. You can only choose whether to keep waiting for their spark to return, or to walk away and protect your own light. What do you think about this? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. I look forward to hearing from you and discussing further. Don't forget to like if you find this content useful and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future posts. Thank you very much. Let's continue together. Sign 2. Communication becomes cold and superficial. In a loving relationship, communication is more than just words exchanged. It's the emotional thread that keeps two people connected, the space where feelings are shared, dreams are spoken aloud, and vulnerabilities are embraced. But when a man begins to emotionally check out of the relationship, one of the clearest signs is how the communication starts to change, not in volume, but in depth. At first, it's subtle. He still replies to your messages, still picks up your calls, but something feels off. His words are shorter. His tone, flatter. The warmth you once felt in every interaction begins to fade, replaced by a mechanical sense of duty, like he's responding out of obligation, not out of desire. He used to ask about your day and truly listen. Now, he just says, "That's nice," or "Okay." Conversations that used to stretch late into the night, filled with laughter, ideas, and mutual curiosity, are now reduced to short, bland exchanges. You begin to feel like you're speaking to a version of him that's on autopilot. When communication becomes cold and superficial, it leaves you feeling lonely even when you're not alone. You might be sitting next to him on the couch, but you feel miles apart. You share something important with him. Perhaps a struggle, an achievement, or even just a story from your day, and instead of engagement, you receive a lukewarm response, or worse, no response at all. It's not just about what he says, it's about what he doesn't say. He no longer initiates meaningful conversations. He no longer checks in emotionally. And most importantly, he no longer makes space for you to feel heard. This change can be devastating because it strikes at the heart of intimacy. We crave to be understood, to be seen and validated by the person we love. When your partner no longer provides that safe emotional space, it creates an invisible wall between you, one that grows taller and colder with every shallow reply. The worst part? You begin to doubt yourself. You start overthinking every message, wondering if you said too much, or not enough. You reread his texts, searching for signs of affection or even a hint of genuine care. And when you don't find it, you start blaming yourself. Did I do something wrong? Am I being too needy? Is this my fault? But it's not about you being too much. It's about him becoming less engaged, less emotionally available, less invested. When a man is still in love, he wants to know how you feel. He wants to dive into your thoughts, your fears, your hopes. But when the love begins to fade, that desire disappears. He starts guarding his emotional energy, reserving it only for what he has to do, and not for what he wants to share with you. You might also notice that he avoids difficult conversations altogether. If you try to bring up the changes you've noticed, he may dismiss you with phrases like "you're overthinking," "it's nothing," or "don't start drama." But deep down, you know it's not nothing. It's the slow erosion of emotional connection, and he doesn't want to face it. So what can you do? Start by trusting your intuition. If you feel a growing distance, if you sense that conversations are no longer serving as a bridge but rather a barrier, it's time to acknowledge the shift. Pretending things are fine only prolongs your own emotional exhaustion. Next, express your truth. Let him know, calmly and clearly, that you felt a change in the way you two communicate. Don't accuse. Just describe. Say things like, "I've noticed our conversations don't feel as open as they used to," or "I miss feeling connected to you when we talk." If he cares, he'll respond with awareness and effort. If he doesn't, he'll shut down or deflect, and that silence will tell you everything you need to know. Lastly, protect your emotional peace. Don't keep pouring your heart into a space that feels empty. Communication is a two-way bridge. You deserve to be met halfway. If he no longer wants to walk that path with you, it may be time to ask yourself if you're willing to keep walking alone just to maintain the illusion of closeness. When communication dies, the relationship doesn't always end right away, but it begins to decay from within. The love that once felt alive becomes a ghost that haunts the silence. And if you're the only one still trying to breathe life into the connection, you're not in a relationship anymore, you're in a memory. Real love talks. It listens. It leans in. Anything less is a warning, not a whisper. If you are still watching the video, do not hesitate to comment "continue." Leave your thoughts and questions below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions, and do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel so that Sophia has more motivation to create more good and meaningful videos. Let's continue together. Sign 3. He avoids serious conversations. There's a moment in every relationship when something doesn't feel right. You sense the distance. You feel the shift. And naturally, you want to talk about it, to understand where things are going, to reconnect, to realign. But every time you try to have that serious conversation, he pulls away. He changes the subject, makes a joke, or suddenly gets too busy. It's not that the words aren't being said, it's that he refuses to receive them. When a man avoids serious conversations, it's not just frustrating, it's revealing. Communication is the foundation of emotional intimacy. If someone can't engage in a heartfelt dialogue, especially when it matters most, then you're not building a relationship, you're walking on eggshells hoping not to break what's already fragile. In the beginning, it might seem harmless. He shrugs off a deep topic with a light laugh. He says things like, "Let's not overthink this," or "Why ruin the mood?" You may even tell yourself he's just not good at expressing emotions. But over time, this pattern becomes a wall. One that keeps you out, no matter how hard you try to knock on the door. You try to talk about where the relationship is heading. He tells you to just enjoy the moment. You express a concern. He tells you you're being dramatic. You ask if something's bothering him. He insists everything's fine, but his actions tell a different story. The truth is, avoidance is a decision. It's a conscious or unconscious way to maintain control while emotionally withdrawing. By refusing to engage in real conversations, he shields himself from accountability, vulnerability, and the responsibility that comes with loving someone deeply. And while he's avoiding the talk, you're carrying the weight. You replay moments in your mind, wondering if you should have said it differently, waited for a better time, or stayed silent altogether. You begin to suppress your own needs to avoid pushing him further away. But in doing so, you shrink. Your voice gets quieter, your confidence gets dimmer, and the relationship becomes one-sided. Here's what many women don't realize at first: a man's unwillingness to have serious conversations is often a way of telling you he's no longer emotionally invested, without having to say it out loud. It's easier for him to deflect than to admit he's unsure, indifferent, or already halfway out the door. But avoidance doesn't preserve the relationship, it poisons it slowly. Resentment builds when emotions go unacknowledged. Confusion grows when questions go unanswered. You may start to feel like you're being unreasonable for simply wanting clarity, honesty, and emotional connection. So what does this kind of behavior look like in real life? It looks like him scrolling through his phone when you're pouring your heart out. It looks like him getting defensive every time you bring up something that matters to you. It looks like you, sitting across from him, saying, "We need to talk," and watching the light fade from his eyes as he prepares to shut down. And the saddest part is, you know he used to listen. You remember when he leaned in, when he cared, when your feelings felt safe in his presence. But now, he acts as if serious conversations are attacks, and your emotions are burdens. That's not love. That's avoidance dressed up as peace. And a relationship without honest conversations is not peaceful, it's emotionally bankrupt. So what can you do? First, stop blaming yourself. You are not wrong for wanting clarity. You are not difficult for needing open communication. These are the essentials of a healthy relationship, not extras that require permission. Second, recognize the pattern. Avoidance is often paired with manipulation. He may make you feel guilty for bringing things up, or suggest that you're the problem for always starting something. But love doesn't gaslight. Love leans in, even when it's uncomfortable. Finally, ask yourself this hard question: if he refuses to talk about the things that matter to me, how can we grow? A relationship can't evolve if one person is doing all the emotional labor while the other hides behind silence. You deserve a partner who meets you in the middle. Not someone who hides when the conversations get real. Because when a man truly cares about you and the relationship, he will not run from hard conversations. He will show up, maybe clumsily, maybe imperfectly, but he will try. Love isn't just about how people act when things are easy. It's how they respond when things get complicated. And if he's not willing to meet you in those vulnerable, uncomfortable spaces, he's not really showing up at all. Sign 4. He doesn't get jealous or care what you're doing anymore. There was a time when he used to ask about your day, not out of suspicion, but out of genuine curiosity. He wanted to know where you were, who you were with, what made you smile, and what challenged you. If another guy messaged you or complimented you, he noticed. Not because he was controlling, but because he cared. Because you mattered deeply to him. But now? You could go days without telling him where you've been or who you were with, and he barely reacts. You could dress up for a night out and he wouldn't even ask who you're going with. You could mention an old male friend, a coworker who's been texting a lot, or even an admirer, and all you'd get is a shrug or a dry, cool. At first, this sudden indifference might seem like maturity. You might tell yourself, it's good that he trusts me, or maybe he's just being chill. But eventually, it starts to sting. Because it's not really trust. It's detachment. You begin to notice that he no longer shows interest in your world. He doesn't ask follow-up questions. He doesn't seem excited to know about the people you spend your time with. And worst of all, he no longer seems to care whether someone else might be paying attention to you, because his attention has already drifted elsewhere. Jealousy, when it's toxic or controlling, is unhealthy. But a healthy relationship does include a sense of protectiveness. When someone truly values you, they will have an emotional reaction, no matter how composed, when they feel that something might threaten what they share with you. They don't need to start a fight or demand answers. But they care. And that care is visible. When that emotion disappears completely, it's not a sign of evolved love, it's a warning sign that the connection is fading. That spark of concern, that flicker of curiosity about your life, is what reminds you that you still matter to him. When it's gone, silence replaces it. And that silence is deafening. It's easy to miss this at first. Especially if you've grown used to handling things on your own. You may not expect him to check in. You may even welcome the space. But eventually, you'll notice that he's no longer present emotionally. Not just in the big moments, but in the everyday details that once made your relationship feel alive. You could post a photo looking radiant and confident, and he won't react. You could talk about a new guy you met at the gym, and he won't flinch. You could even say you ran into an ex, and he'd barely raise an eyebrow. It's not peace, it's indifference. And indifference, in a relationship, is far more painful than jealousy ever was. So why does this happen? Because when a man emotionally detaches, he no longer feels the need to hold on to the relationship. He stops checking in, not because he trusts you, but because he's no longer invested. It's not about giving you space, it's about mentally stepping away. Quietly. Slowly. Without explanation. This kind of emotional withdrawal is often a defense mechanism. Instead of admitting he's not in love anymore, he becomes passive. He lets things slide. He waits for you to bring up the distance. He hopes you'll be the one to make the decision he's too afraid to make. But you can feel it. You feel it in the way he doesn't ask where you've been. You feel it when you go out and realize he didn't even check if you made it home safe. You feel it when you start craving a reaction, any reaction, just to feel like you still matter to him. So what do you do? First, don't confuse silence with strength. If you feel neglected, if you feel like your life is unfolding and the man you love no longer cares to be part of it, that matters. Don't gaslight yourself into believing that needing attention, presence, or care is asking for too much. It's not. Second, try communicating. Gently, honestly. Let him know you've noticed a shift. You don't have to accuse, just express. Sometimes, emotional distance comes from stress or personal struggles. But if he's still distant after you open that door, if he shows no desire to rebuild that connection, then you have your answer. Lastly, remember this: real love doesn't fade into indifference. It may have quiet seasons, but it doesn't disappear without a trace. A man who still loves you may not get wildly jealous, but he will care. He will ask. He will notice. And he will never make you wonder whether your life still matters to him. If he no longer shows concern for where you are, who you're with, or how you're really doing, it's not just about trust. It's about whether his heart is still in the relationship. And when care disappears, love doesn't usually linger much longer. Sign 5. He no longer spends quality time with you. There's a kind of intimacy that doesn't need words, just presence. It's in the shared glances during a quiet dinner. In the way your legs brush against his on the couch as you watch a movie. In the walks, the late-night talks, the unplanned car rides to nowhere. Time, when spent with someone who truly loves you, becomes a sacred space. But when a man no longer values that space, it becomes painfully obvious. He used to make time for you. Even when life got busy. He would rearrange his schedule, squeeze in a quick coffee, or surprise you with a spontaneous date night. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because being with you brought him joy, peace, and purpose. Now? Everything feels like a chore. He's too busy to meet up. Always tired. Always caught up with work, friends, errands, everything but you. The moments you used to share start fading, replaced by long gaps of silence, vague promises of maybe next weekend, and the occasional text that feels more like a check-in than an invitation. It's not just the absence of time, it's the absence of effort. When you do manage to spend time together, it feels different. He's distracted. Glued to his phone. Barely engaged. You're in the same room, but not in the same moment. You feel like a background character in a life he no longer wants to share. And you start asking yourself, when did I become optional? Time is one of the most honest expressions of love. When someone prioritizes you, even in small ways, it tells you they care. When they consistently fail to show up, physically, emotionally, or intentionally, it sends a louder message than any words ever could. Many women in this situation begin to make excuses for the man they love. He's stressed. He needs space. He'll come around. And maybe, for a while, that's true. But when weeks turn into months, and the distance becomes a pattern rather than a phase, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a waiting room. You find yourself begging for slivers of attention. Dropping hints about needing more time together. Suggesting plans only to hear, "We'll see." You downplay your own loneliness just to keep the peace. But inside, you're aching for connection. For that version of him who once couldn't go a day without seeing you. This kind of emotional starvation doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow unraveling. A gradual loss of shared experiences, laughter, closeness. And the cruelest part? He might not even realize it. Or worse, he realizes it, but doesn't care enough to change it. If he can binge-watch shows, go out with his friends, and scroll through social media for hours, but somehow can't carve out 30 minutes just to be with you. It's not about time. It's about priorities. And you should never have to beg to be someone's priority. So what can you do? First, take an honest inventory. Are you the only one initiating time together? Are your efforts being reciprocated, or simply tolerated? Are your shared moments meaningful, or just habitual? Then, speak your truth. Gently but clearly. Let him know how the lack of quality time is affecting you, not as an accusation, but as a plea for reconnection. A man who still cares will listen. He may not fix it overnight, but he'll try. Because love, at its core, wants to show up. But if he brushes it off, makes excuses, or accuses you of being too needy, take note. That's not love, that's avoidance. That's someone who no longer values the gift of your presence. Time is the currency of relationships. You invest it, you share it, you build with it. When one partner stops investing, the foundation begins to crack. And no matter how much effort you put in, you can't build something strong when you're the only one showing up to do the work. You deserve someone who doesn't just make time for you, but wants to. Someone who looks forward to seeing you. Someone who understands that quality time isn't just about being in the same place, it's about being present, attentive, and emotionally available. Don't settle for being fit into someone's schedule. You are not an errand. You are not an afterthought. You are someone worth slowing down for. And if he no longer sees that, it may be time to ask yourself, what am I really holding on to, him, or the memory of who he used to be? Sign 6. Physical affection disappears or becomes just a habit. There's a unique kind of intimacy that comes from physical touch. It's not always grand or overt, it can be as simple as the way he holds your hand while driving, the warmth of his hug after a long day, or the spontaneous kiss in the kitchen while dinner simmers on the stove. These moments say, "I see you, I want you, and you matter to me." They are small, unspoken gestures that carry the weight of deep connection. But when physical affection starts to fade, or worse, feels mechanical, you know something has shifted. At first, you might notice he no longer initiates touch. He stops reaching for your hand. His hugs feel rushed. His kisses are brief, distracted, almost like checking off a box. What once felt electric now feels cold. What once ignited connection now sparks confusion. You lie in bed next to him, and instead of curling up into one another like you used to, there's space, physical and emotional, between you. Maybe he turns his back. Maybe he scrolls on his phone. Maybe he falls asleep without a word. The closeness that once anchored your relationship now feels like a memory you're trying to resurrect. And when you try to reach out, touch his arm, initiate a kiss, run your fingers through his hair, you're met with indifference, a lackluster response, or sometimes subtle withdrawal. It's not rejection in the form of words, but in the absence of enthusiasm. And that silence stings even more. Sometimes, intimacy still happens. But it feels different now. It's no longer an expression of love or desire, it's routine. Predictable. Hollow. Almost like an obligation rather than a shared experience. You start to wonder, is he doing this because he wants me, or because it's what couples are supposed to do? When physical affection becomes robotic, it often mirrors a deeper emotional disconnect. It's rarely just about touch, it's about the feeling behind it. Passion fades when the heart withdraws. And when there's no emotional fuel driving those moments, they begin to feel empty. You can be as close as skin allows, and yet feel miles away from the person lying next to you. This shift can be especially painful for women because touch is often where emotional connection lives. It's how you feel reassured, desired, and grounded in your relationship. When it disappears or becomes routine, you don't just feel unwanted, you feel unseen. It's important to understand that temporary dips in physical affection happen in any long-term relationship. Stress, fatigue, health, and life circumstances can all play a role. But when the absence becomes a pattern, when it lingers without explanation, effort, or concern, it's no longer a phase. It's a message. And that message may be, I'm not here with you anymore, not fully. What makes this harder is the lack of honesty. He may not admit that he's pulled away. He might still go through the motions. He might still touch you, but without the tenderness that used to make you feel loved. You're not imagining that difference. Your body knows. Your heart knows. You feel the void, even when his hands are still on you. So, what do you do? Start by asking yourself how his touch makes you feel. Do you feel seen? Desired? Safe? Or do you feel ignored, rejected, or reduced to routine? Your emotional response is valid, and it's the first sign of whether the connection is still alive or fading. Then, communicate. You don't have to accuse him. You can simply express, I miss the way we used to be close. If he cares, he won't just explain, he'll show up. He'll try. He may not know how to fix it right away, but he'll make the effort. Because physical intimacy in a relationship isn't just about sex, it's about connection, intention, and presence. But if he brushes you off, gets defensive, or shows no willingness to rebuild that intimacy, then you have to face a hard truth. Sometimes, people stay physically close to avoid addressing emotional distance. But proximity is not presence. And routine is not love. You deserve more than habit. You deserve passion, intention, tenderness, and truth. You deserve to be touched not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because your presence still stirs something in him. Because being close to you still feels like home. If that's no longer the case, then it's time to ask yourself, is this relationship still feeding my soul, or just filling space in my life? Sign 7. You feel like you're in a one-sided relationship. Perhaps one of the most painful realizations in love isn't when someone tells you they no longer care, it's when they stop showing it, and you're the only one left trying to keep everything together. You find yourself loving harder, giving more, trying to fix what feels broken, all while the other person seems perfectly content doing less, or nothing at all. This is the heartbreaking reality of a one-sided relationship. And if you're honest with yourself, you've felt it building for a while. You initiate most of the conversations. You plan the time together. You ask how his day was, check in on his feelings, and try to keep the emotional connection alive. Meanwhile, he responds, but rarely reciprocates. He shows up, but without energy, without intention. You pour love into a space that no longer echoes it back. It starts subtly. He forgets small details. He no longer compliments you, no longer notices when something's bothering you. You could be crying on the inside, and he wouldn't ask why. You could be glowing with pride over something you accomplished, and he wouldn't take the time to celebrate with you. The things that once brought you closer, shared joy, mutual care, emotional attunement, have become one-sided efforts. You may tell yourself, relationships go through phases, and that's true. But a phase becomes a pattern when there's no effort to change it. When the imbalance stretches into weeks, months, when you start to feel emotionally drained while he seems completely unaffected, that's when it becomes a problem. In a healthy relationship, love flows in both directions. It's not always equal every moment, but there's a rhythm. A balance. Each partner takes turns carrying the weight when the other can't. But in a one-sided relationship, it's always you doing the heavy lifting. You're constantly trying to close the gap. Constantly trying to feel chosen. And that's not love, that's emotional survival. The worst part? You start losing yourself in the process. You stop expressing your needs because you don't want to seem needy. You settle for breadcrumbs of attention and convince yourself they're enough. You lower your expectations, minimize your hurt, and tell yourself, maybe this is just what love feels like after a while. But deep down, you know better. You remember how love used to feel, how he used to make you feel. You remember the excitement, the emotional safety, the sense of partnership. And now, it feels like you're loving in the dark, hoping that someday he'll notice the light you're still trying to shine for the both of you. And if you try to talk about it, he may dismiss your feelings. He may say you're overthinking, being dramatic, or that you're too sensitive. But none of those words make the loneliness go away. None of them bring back the version of him who used to meet you halfway. You start to realize that you've become more invested in saving the relationship than he is in being in it. So, what can you do? Start by facing the truth, not the version of the relationship you're holding on to, but the version that exists now. Ask yourself, if I stopped trying, would anything change? Would he notice the silence? Would he fight for you? Or would the relationship slowly collapse because it was only ever standing on your effort alone? Then, remember this, you are not asking for too much. Wanting to feel loved, prioritized, and emotionally connected is not a burden, it's the bare minimum of what real love offers. You are not difficult for desiring reciprocity. You are not too emotional for craving closeness. You are simply human. Sometimes, walking away from a one-sided relationship isn't about giving up. It's about choosing yourself. It's about recognizing that staying in a space where you're the only one loving, hoping, and trying is far lonelier than being alone. You deserve to be met with the same energy you give. You deserve a love that doesn't make you question your worth. You deserve someone who shows up, not because you begged them to, but because they want to. And if he no longer does, if you feel like you're constantly chasing love that should come freely, then maybe it's not your love that's the problem, it's where you've been placing it. True love doesn't make you feel like a guest in your own relationship. It doesn't leave you guessing, waiting, or proving your worth. It meets you with open hands, not empty silence. And the moment you realize your heart deserves more than one-way effort, that's the moment everything begins to change. Conclusion. Love doesn't always end with a clear goodbye. Sometimes, it fades away in silence, in eyes that no longer meet, in touches that become strange and superficial. The most painful thing is not when someone leaves, but when they stay, but their heart is no longer with you. When you are the only one trying, the only one loving, the only one holding on, it is no longer a relationship, it is a hurt that is prolonged in silence. And you deserve more than that. You deserve someone who actively loves you, actively spends time with you, actively listens to you and touches you with sincerity, not out of habit, but out of true feelings. If you are recognizing those signs, distance, indifference, lack of connection, then be brave enough to face them. Don't comfort yourself with blind hope. Be honest with yourself. Take a step back, not to leave in a hurry, but to see more clearly. Are you holding on to a man, or just holding on to the memory of someone who loved you? True love doesn't make you confused. It makes you feel safe. If you have to constantly doubt, then perhaps you already have the answer. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. Hopefully the sharing about love and lessons from this video will help you have new thoughts and find empathy. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share it with those around you. Each of us has our own stories about love, and I'm happy to explore them with you. See you in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful and loving day.